Welcome to the Conscious Wellbeing Podcast. Today we have an exemplary coach, Rishad Ahmed. His new book has come out, Leading with Wisdom, Reimagining the Future of Leadership. We're going to delve into leadership, artificial intelligence, as well as well-being. Three core concepts that we'd like to discuss and see how we can help you as the listener. Welcome, Rishad Ahmed.
Thank you, Roshan.
Pleasure. Let me first read an excerpt from one of your chapters. Our ability to think clearly, to feel deeply, to be present enough for ourselves is eroding. We brace ourselves before we speak. We hide our true thoughts behind text and closed doors. In public, we negotiate identities, censor ourselves, and avoid saying anything real for fear of offending. Conversation has become a shallow performance. Ideas are buried under politeness and the truth abandoned in the name of safety. In today's world, leaders are, there's more performance than presence. There's more progress and performance where metrics and measurements are needed. Are leaders today present?
Well, overall, I would say no. And I think that's why I had to write the book, because I found there's a huge lack of awareness and presence in leaders, not just leaders, but in society as a whole. And it's not our fault. That's one thing we have to understand is that our attention has been stripped into many, many directions. So we are not able to focus and be attentive. And to be attentive, you need to be attentive to be present, because how can you be not attentive? So being attentive means to attend to. And so you have two parts of your brain. You have the left brain and the right brain. So what are you attending to? So attention and attending to is a very important thing. And of course, we are lacking a lot. So because we live in the post-extraction times right now. So we basically extracted 80% of the natural resources of the world, basically gold, oil, fossil fuels. And so the people who want to make money, the last known thing they can extract is our attention. So we live in what Shoshana Zuboff calls the attention economy. This is the attention economy. Your attention is the most valuable asset to companies because they can use that attention to sell their products and keep you engaged. So the more outraged and the more polarizing the viewpoint is, the more traction it gains on social media. And because we are people who have forgotten how to attend to the world, we react simply based on our primal instincts, or the hippocampus, our ability. You could call it the ancient brain, the primitive brain, where we react to outrage and to fear and to joy and to stimulation. And so we have now become exhaustion. So there's a book called The Dopamine Nation. And Dopamine Nation goes into how we've become addicted to feel-good content. So yes, we are not like I say in the book, our attention is in many places. And also we have an entirely new concept of social etiquette, which is constantly evolving. So a leader feels very uncertain about what they should say and how they should say it, because now it's become what was acceptable yesterday is now regarded as toxic or trigger worthy. So you can't say that. So leaders are tiptoeing. They don't know what to say and how to say it because they don't want to offend, but they need to guide their people, and they're trapped in this whole thing of, do I need to please everybody? And so I wrote an article on LinkedIn saying, I feel for leaders, because you'll see posts that go viral on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms about what a good leader is and what a bad leader is. So a good leader basically lets you do whatever you want, never says anything nasty to you, and does whatever, lets you do whatever you want. But the leader is now, responsible to their board, to the profits, to the numbers, and they can't execute on that because they're being told by social media that's not what a good leader is. So now they're like, okay, well, my boss is upset with me. The board I'm not living up to expectations. And the people seem annoyed because I had to get rid of half of them because they weren't meeting up to expectations. So they're trapped, So then I talk about this in depth on sovereignty, on becoming a sovereign leader, about making decisions from a place of depth. So I talk about having a hard back and a soft front.
Oh.
So a hard back means that your values and your core message and your core reason why you are a leader is grounded on something sacred. So I talk about sacred leadership. It's not based on why am I here, for my title, for my role, for my for my bonuses, so that I can be seen as a leader on my resume. But we're beyond that stage, you see, because leadership is a sacred act, and that's what I talk about. So it now protects you by embracing the sacredness of your role. Because you're saying, I'm not acting for myself. I'm acting in the interests of the planet, of the people, and of my company. Now, that's also another thing. How companies operate and what they're driven by is another issue. So having a soft front means you still can be polite. And this is what we know as the West when it comes to child raising or authority or teaching is very different in the East. So in the East, the master or the trainer saying to you, "That's wrong, don't do that again," is perfectly acceptable. But in the West, it's like, well, that was nasty. You could have said it more politely. So then you go through the whole politeness thing, and in the process, you actually lose the thread of what you're there for. So softness is also harshness. If you think about it, when it comes to a child and a parent, you're like, the child says, "No, I want to go out with my friends and smoke weed." And you go, "No, you can't do that." And now that can be perceived as, well, you're being nasty to me. Just the same way as the employee being told by a leader, you need to up your game because, the numbers are not good or, your performance is lacking. Now that's regarded as offense. So what are you supposed to do? Now, if you are just there to please, just as now parenting has become, I just want to have friends, make friends with my kids, right? I don't actually want to parent them. I want to be their friend. So if you want to be their friend, then forget about parenting. And if you want to be a leader and don't want and still want to be a friend, you can't. So it doesn't mean you're going to be nasty.
Is there a good mix to it?
That's the whole
Should
balance.
There be a good mix to it?
There has to be a balance. So that's the hard back means that you have sacred duties as a parent, as a leader, and they're guided by higher principles. So you got to first ask yourself, why am I in this role? Because if I'm here for the goodies, I want to make everybody happy, and I want to be seen as a nice guy or a nice woman, then you have to bring into question your shadow. And that's what I've been doing all my life with coaching is like, and we spoke about this, while we're having coffee, is that everyone's concerned about what other people think. Because they haven't even faced their need to be a nice person, that they care about what everybody thinks. Well, if you care about what everybody thinks, then why are you in a leadership role? Because leadership has now been reframed as some position where everybody loves you. But if you look at leaders of the past, they were not there to be liked. They were there to be respected and followed because of the higher values that they stood by. It's not because they were soft and shallow and just fluffy.
Yeah. Like you bring up Nelson Mandela in the book, and I was reflecting on it, and I said, Mandela, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., they had this higher purpose in saying that they wanted equality for the human being. They weren't worried about having that success, that prosperity and progress, but they wanted progress for everybody. They wanted equality for every single human being because they felt that this is how I am expressing freedom, or this is why I want to be free, but the rest of the continent or the country is not feeling that because there's this oppression. And when you're in an organization, it's more self-preservation sometimes, that an executive or the leaders are looking at self-preservation instead of this whole holistic, I work for an organization that has values, that has a mission, that has purpose for the larger community, the larger encompassing aspects of what it is to be a leader in a company. Have we lost that that where leaders and executives think that it's more about self-preservation and not about the progress of the entirety.
Yeah, and that comes to the fact of how our companies are structured. Okay, because that's so a leader is put into a role. You see the jobs that are posted. It's not they're not talking about. If you look at leadership positions that I've looked at, and they say, oh, we give you a nice environment, and there's a lot of leave, and you'll be stimulated, but none of it talks about your sacred responsibility. Imagine the advert said, you will be concerned about the future of our planet. The well-being of our people is paramount to your role. Do not take this role on if you don't believe that you represent the people and the planet for the higher cause. Most people, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
But when we go, there's a nice tea room, there's parties every Friday night, there's the games room, you get meditation time, or we send you on retreats. Yeah, sure, I'll sign up for it. So are you into the leadership role? And very clearly in the earlier of the book, I'm like, if you're just there for another quick gain, another thing you can add on to your repertoire of gaining further success, then you're not the type of leader the future is looking for. Because the future needs leaders that are very conscious of their sacred responsibility. And that means that companies have also to be concerned with why they make money, how they make money, and the duties they have. And are there going to be losses in the long term that we need to think about? And that's what we'll talk about later about our type of thinking as well.
In the book, you bring up the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, in terms of looking at organizational, leadership, that we too focused on the the left hemisphere, where there's logic and there's rationality and there's frameworks and measurements and metrics, and we too focused on that there without seeing the larger picture. Can you go through us in terms of this left hemisphere, right hemisphere? How does it integrate into elevating a leader to see more of what they actually wanting to seek in their leadership role?
Yeah, so you just struck on a major topic for me, because I was trying to diagnose where the issues lie when it comes to leadership and when it comes to companies. And I realized it has to do with the way that we think. And thinking is not even enough, because we have to look at terms. We talk about intelligence, and intelligence in the modern day, if you look at artificial intelligence, right? If you just look at the term, what is intelligence before it became artificial intelligence? What was real intelligence? And what is intelligence? Is intelligence something that is compute, about the ability to crunch numbers, process data, or is it something more? And that's the whole thing about defining what intelligence is. So we have left brain intelligence, which we define as your ability to narrow in onto a particular object, a piece of data, a particular person in your company, a particular situation. And that's your foveal vision, your ability to zoom in. So when you, for example, in the animal kingdom, you'll see a bird swooping in to catch, a worm, and you'll see him coming in. That's foveal vision. It's just one track minded. That's all I want to get is that worm. Now, in the process, if that bird is catching the worm and doesn't see the predators around it, what's going to happen? It's going to be somebody else's lunch. So that's why we've got two types. We have peripheral vision and we have foveal vision. One sees the object and zooms in on it. That's your left brain. And the other one is the peripheral vision. It sees the broader picture. It says, there's the wind is blowing. I might miss my target. The worm's going over there. There may be a lion in the hiding. And so that's the two types of visions that we have. Now, when you combine that, so on the right-hand side of the brain, the right hemisphere of the brain is based on the wider picture. It's based on holistic perception, seeing the broader peripheral vision, the things that you're blindsided to. This is what, when we use the word blindsided, is because we were so narrowly focused. We didn't see the broader picture. So if we are to survive as a species into the next century, because now, as you know, from what Dr. Zach Bush and others are saying, we're hitting planetary boundaries because of the way we've been extracting from the earth, and the way our oceans are being polluted, the carbon, the fossil fuels, all the rest of it. We're the only species on the planet that is capable of causing the extinction of the planet. Think about it. Could a lion kingdom ever do that? Could monkeys ever do that? Humans.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating that you're saying that. It's that we've come to a point where soil is no longer important, and you bring that up in the book. It's to say that we have no sacredness and sovereignty towards what actually preserves us. The soil is now sand. It's used for building high-rise buildings. It's just a resource. But if you look deeper within that, you can see that the soil feeds us. Science today tells us there's so much of depth of bacteria and things that keep us alive that we were so unaware of it decades ago. But it's how it's preserving us, and we're not looking after it. And that's why in the next 100 years that the land has become so arid, we can't do agriculture anymore. Are we lost that sacredness in leadership and on this planet in terms of that there?
Yeah, and that's a big thing and a very important point. So this is the left hemisphere's blindsightedness. It sees. So I talk about two types of thinking in my book. One is called calculative thinking, and the other type is meditative thinking. So calculative thinking is about numbers and extraction. It sees a forest and it says, well, how much wood can I make? How many tables can I make? Now, meditative thinking allows you to dwell in a state of being where you see the forest as the forest, not as something to optimize or extract. And that's what we've done with our health as well, right? Instead of looking at the body as something to be in reverence of, we look at how to optimize it. Take this supplement, do this VO2 max.
It's like exercise for 1 hour. It's like you've put your mind out to say, okay, I have to exercise for an hour and then I'm going to be healthy. But it's more than that.
Yeah. So basically in the process, you've starting to extract. Now, without realizing it, there's this wonderful saying that you bite the hand that feeds you, right? So if you think about it, it's this earth that is sustaining life, and you go and extract to the point of planetary boundaries where you don't have anything more to extract. You've basically killed 85% of the arable soil on the planet. And now you've hit those boundaries and still you're not stopping and going, whoa, what have we done here? So in the process of left brain reductionism, we reduced everything to measurable metrics. And we look at, a piece of land, we think about, well, how much coal can we extract? How much coal can we extract? If we look at people as human resources.
Absolutely.
So we can extract from them as a resource. What can we extract? I remember my brother telling me, working for one of the largest IT companies in the world, and they said, you've got to earn your place. You are a resource center, and we've got to extract from you, and that's perfectly acceptable. You've got to give us how much we're putting in numbers. So
we fall into that trap. And I remember, while reading your book, is reflecting as well. And I looked at it, like 10 years ago, if I got 100 emails in my inbox, I felt I was very productive. And this proves to me that I'm working hard. But I think that's a jaded, logical view of thinking that you're productive, because you could be more stressed, more overthinking, more thinking that this is what makes success happen. But when you move into these different dimensions of thinking, meditative thinking, right hemisphere thinking, is that you're actually holistically looking at problems from all different viewpoints, where you can see, oh no, there may be a different way to find a solution. It's not that I have to dissect it or make a decision absolutely quickly, and I need to have this board meeting so that a decision needs to be made. And we're not pausing enough to get to that point and to stop in the noise and finding the signals in what we're looking at. Is that where we're not looking at, because of our education system, the way we've been educated?
Well, that's partly to blame, yes. So the reductionist view of looking at just facts. So the other thing that you mentioned about productivity and about optimizing, we've become people that are obsessed with being productive. And we started living at the pace of machines. So if you look at it, what AI does better than most humans is productivity and efficiency, but in a very limited way. And we've confused modern day life for being as efficient and productive as possible. But life is not about productivity. Life is about living. And life is about sacredness. And life is about reverence and all these qualities. So if we say, for instance, look at the most popular stuff on internet today. And if you look at the stuff that people watch, it's about how to become richer, how to become fitter, how to become stronger, how to become the best of the best. Because that's all we're here to do. There's nobody that's going to watch a podcast on how to ponder the meaning of life, like to be in reverence of life. So if you look at what Joseph Campbell said so beautifully, he said that if you want to see the values of what a society holds dear, look at the structures that they build. So if you look at it back in 100 years ago, 200 years ago, all around, the churches, the cathedrals, the opera houses, even the baths, they stood prominent. If you look today, it's just banks. It's just money. And so everybody's become obsessed with that until now AI has thrown a spanner in the works, because they basically, what they're saying is when AGI comes on board, the entire economy becomes redundant. We are into a new type of economy, and basically there's no point working because AI is going to do all of it. So, and we're actively pushing for that without realizing it. Everybody's pushing courses on AI. Nobody stops and thinks and says, but technology, is it supposed to serve humankind, or is it something to catch up to? So what we're doing is we're saying, oh, well, the tech companies are rolling it out. And all companies are going, well, we better catch up. So they're just booking workshops on how to catch up to AI. But who's leading the pace? And why can't we pause and go, but actually, we don't want to lose our jobs. We don't want to stop being creative. We don't want to lose the humanity of our work for automated agents, automated response systems. I mean, if you ever dealt with an AI agent over the web instead of a real person, you know what we're talking about. But the drive is coming from where? What's the push to develop more technology? Why aren't we thinking to ourselves, hold on, maybe we don't want that feature. Let's use AI for developing a cure for one of the dreadful diseases. Let's talk about AI and use that. But what they're doing is rolling out these systems to everybody. And I mean, the cost to the planet and the environment, the amount of water and the amount of fossil fuels. And of course, the Trump administration is just fanning these things. I mean, these people want to put I think it was Sam Altman says, wants to invest $10 trillion in data centers in order to provide enough. And then you wonder, what utility are these chatbots providing to us? And what is the loss to us in the process? So technology is not something that rolls out as basically Instagram rolled out, and we're spending our time catching up to what Instagram does. And now we put the podcast up on Instagram and do this and do that. But isn't a human conversation that we're having right now so much more superior than watching it online? So what they want is that we just spend all our time in front of the computer. But that we know that 95%, I think it's 97% of all communication is nonverbal. So there's this heart-to-heart transmission that happens in a live encounter when you go watch a performance or a play or watching someone speak. There is something that's transmitted there that the technology can't.
You can't really, it has no physical value. There's an interesting value to just having a deep conversation with somebody or reading a book instead of reading it on Kindle or reading it. There's this digital intelligence that's just overrun our life currently. And we sit here, and I like the one phrase that you're doing is like rectangular glowing, devices that we're carrying around, and then we walk around with it, and you can see it in society today. We walk with our phones in our hand. We don't even know who's around us. You're sitting at a coffee shop and everybody's got their phones out. Is that people are thinking that this intelligence is more significant than this our own inner intelligence that's created this. And I was watching a podcast as well where they're so focused on artificial intelligence and AGI and ASI that one agent can do 10,000 hours of work or 10,000 things that a human being can do. And they're so focused that this is what it's going to do and create, at the expense that thousands of jobs are being lost. There's no interface or for us to be connected to it in a valuable way. It's just that it's reducing and making this reduction of value, of human value. How does human value increase, and where we're going to know our usefulness? Because an AI is taking this productivity usefulness away from a human being, and we need to know that we are still useful. There's a mental pandemic probably going to happen because we feel our usefulness is not going to be valid anymore. It's not going to be valuable anymore, because an AI can do what we're doing. It can think better than us in certain aspects, in certain different fields. But how does a human being evolve beyond that to see that they have value, there is worth in it?
So imagine a time before the birth of personal computers and devices, electronic devices. What use would productivity be? What would be the definition of productivity without computers and devices and algorithms and data? How would you define productivity and efficiency in that time?
I think serving. I noticed in your book is that at the time, 2-3 decades ago, even longer than that, is that anything that was built was to serve your family, serve your community, serve the broader aspects of development and growth so that humans can prosper. But right now, it's at the back of that day. It's where one human being is going to use it to become rich. It's not to serve anything else beyond that. It's just my success now is built on, as you said, your success is monetary now. It's like how much money I have, that makes me successful. How many cars I have, that makes me successful. How many homes I have, that brings success. But it's not really true in the way we're looking at it, because, I once watched a podcast where Tony Robbins said that out of 12 billionaires that he knows, only 2 are probably content in life. The rest of them, they have all the wealth, but they don't understand what it is to have that interesting value of being human, because they've pushed all of their worth into building something to be wealthy and rich.
Yeah. So my point about technology, about usefulness, is AI is only able to be defined as intelligence because of computers. If you don't have computers and you don't have the silicon chip, then what role does AI have in a human world? Zero. So the first thing to understand is that our jobs then became the people that were good at using silicon chips. Because if you remove that, then what are you as a human? And that's something for you to pause and ponder for a second. So if you look at the time before there was the personal computer and the devices and the silicon chip, people lived very differently. People had more time. They had more energy. They had more attention. And they had more value for making things beautiful and taking time to make something beautiful. They also had time for reverence. They had time to look at the sky. They had time to investigate their place on the earth, this thing called meaning. Now, if you take the silicon chip era, which is in the scheme of history, as according to some biologists, where we've been around as Homo sapiens for 200,000 years. In this 200,000 years, how long have we lived with silicon chips? There's a small fraction of less than 150 years. So in the whole scheme of things, how human are we? In fact, we're losing our humanity. And the trap is to think that our intelligence is based on compute ability and number crunching and the ability to use a personal device or data sets. So that is the whole question, is to understand your role as a human has nothing to do with your ability to use devices or crunch numbers or look at data. But now, first there was the silicon chip. Then they became information technology. And then the management of data and algorithms then became on board. So then at that time, the lawyer that used to sit and argue in court and win cases or, speak to judges, then got a glimpse of having technology help them a little bit. So then their role slightly changed to becoming lawyers and someone that participates in using technology. Technology defined specifically as the silicon chip and the computer, right? Because that's not what technology is. Because technology, we talk about human technology. We have the most superior technology out there. What created AI was human technology. AI is not superior to human technology. It is human created technology that birthed artificial intelligence. So what is true intelligence is human intelligence. And human intelligence is not defined by what AI is, which is left brain, rational, logical, calculative intelligence, because human intelligence is different. So then, now that we've become more and more automated using technology, then AI came and replaced many of those automated tasks. So if you look at it, a lawyer was still a lawyer, right? But because you took on the technology, you made yourself redundant. So first you were sold the technology. Then then a technology came about that would do your job, which then made you lose your job. So then what are you? And yet we're pushing ahead to say, let's go ahead and catch up with AI as it takes our jobs away. And every guy and every girl on the internet who can, they're like, you know what? Let's put AI in my profile. Why? Because that's what everybody wants. Who wants it? Who actually wants it? So there's been a huge backlash with data centers and with the ethical components of this thing. And my contention is that we can dictate how we roll out. And basically, it's not artificial. There's nothing artificial about it. It's basically collective intelligence is what AI is. Basically, it took everything all humans got together and thought about and gobbled it up. So it's actually collective intelligence, not artificial. There's nothing artificial about it. So, yeah.
No, it's quite interesting to look at. Is that collectively we are intelligent. If you look at history, if a scientist came up with a particular theory or a mathematician came up with a specific algorithm, this is what the collective allows us to go to space. It wasn't built on one human being just thinking I can go to space or I can help the soil or I can build this particular machine. It's collective intelligence that creates that and allows us to manifest it into reality. But sometimes you think only one person is doing that and now all of this concentrated collective intelligence is falling onto one particular algorithm and you're thinking, wow, that's really incredible and that's so cool. But we lose ourselves when we see things like that there and starting to use it instead of interfacing it, looking at how we can regulate it, how we can build around it. But we can think it becomes a superiority, an authoritative aspect in our existence.
Well, that's being pushed. It's been pushed. The narrative is pushed that AGI is coming.
Yes.
Right? And we must catch up.
Yes.
But hold on. Do we want it?
Absolutely. But nobody's asking that.
Nobody's asking.
It's like, no, we need to.
In fact, I did a post, sorry to interrupt, and I shared something someone else said and said, why aren't we being told? LinkedIn made sure that post, I got 3 people that saw it, 3 views.
Yes.
And since then, everything I posted was just downscale because it doesn't want stuff like that. It doesn't want, because remember, the algorithms are controlling, the social media is controlling the narrative. So if you post something that says, hold on, can you stop and think for a second? It's like when I was posting about awareness, when people were getting emotionally overwhelmed, and I went, take a step back, become aware, become the observer. Like you mentioned when when we met so many years ago, what lies on the other side of fear? Nothing. But we're not allowed to ask that question. So what lies beyond AI, AGI, and all the stuff if it actually does materialize? What happens then? What happened before AGI, AI, technology? Because we forget we've been around for 200,000 years, right?
And it's such a small fraction that we're existing.
Yes.
Yet we're so unaware of it as well. That, you know what, in the last 100 years, so much has happened, but we've been around for so long. Thousands of years. Civilization has been around. And you also touch in the book that there's ancient wisdom. there's the sacred intelligence in comparison to digital intelligence, and we're too focused on the digital intelligence right now. With the sacred intelligence, how do we unlock it? What, in your own transformational journey, what have you seen, and can you give us a bit more in depth of the wisdom that's there?
Yes. So my whole thing was that if we are to navigate the future, then we need to, first of all, perceive differently. We need to tend to the world differently. We need to have a view of ourselves and of the world totally differently than the one that we have right now. So again, intelligence is such a word that has been hijacked by the technocrats who led us to believe that intelligence is defined by your computational power. So sacred intelligence is what I'm talking about, is wisdom. Now, wisdom, I mean, my book is titled that, right? Leading with wisdom. So what is wisdom would be a good thing to talk about. Wisdom is your ability to hold contrary, opposing views at the same time. Wisdom is about making a decision that considers all aspects. Wisdom is from learnt experience, and wisdom does not act quickly ever. Wisdom allows you to pause and reflect, and that is embodied by our older people. They used to embody that because we basically discarded them in many, especially in the West. They're like, well, they're old, and so, but they have, like my grandmother was the ultimate definition of wisdom. You'd go to her and say, "What should I do?" And she'd say, "What do you think you should do?" And you'd be like, "Well, I don't know. You tell me." And she says, "No, you tell me." And I'll say, "Well, I think I should do that." And she'll go, "Let me think about that. Let me pause on that. But I need to no, you don't. Go back. Go eat some food. Go relax. Come back." And then she used to tell me, "Stop thinking so much." Because we're in that phase now where we need an answer right now. And then you have things that my grandmother used to do. She's like, "Don't sleep in. You will get lazy." I'm like, it's a Saturday morning and there's grandma knocking at my door. There's wisdom in that. Now, rationally, does it make sense? No, but that actually does make sense. And you see everything that was carried over. You look at African traditions. They have so many different traditions. They have so many different things that are ingrained within their culture. All cultures have this. But we're throwing it all out for this universal social media culture, which is basically look at nothing in the past, nothing in the future, and accept everything that science says. So a new paper will come out saying neuroscience says that if you run around your garden 16 times, then you'll never get Alzheimer's. And guess what? People will go into their garden and run it around 16 times, making sure they don't miss the 16th mark, because we trust in science. But what is science? And that's another whole thing. So what we realized is that words and concepts and definitions have been hijacked, and we have to pause and extract what the words meant. So we all have to become archaeologists of words and where they came from. And then the English language hides things. We say we need to learn something by heart. I learnt it by heart. Well, if memory was in the brain, why are you learning it by heart? Maybe memories are stored in the heart, So if you look at the word rational, right? Rational thinking, that's what we say. Rational, you need to be more rational. But the ancient Latin word comes from ratio. And if you look at the word ratio, what does ratio mean? In balance, right? You balance something. So ratio meant to take in all the different aspects. Now, here's the thing. All ancient cultures, especially in the West, including Aristotle, Plato, and the ancients, believed that the heart was the seat of intelligence, rationality, and decision-making. They didn't place any emphasis on the brain. So when the ancient Romans were talking about being rational, it was in here. It was never in there. Never. So to be rational means that you've said, what does my heart say? How does it feel inside? And the heart is not just about feelings. That's the primary mistake we've made. We're like, oh, I feel it in my heart. Then why do you learn things by heart? Right? And why do you, your whole identity is based on your heart, right? I talk about that. So if I say to you, say you're in a crowd of people, and I go, you, and you will say, who, me? Where do you point? Right? You didn't go here. right? Because if that's where your identity was held, where's Voroshin? He's in here, right?
Yeah.
What's your name? Voroshin. Where did they come from? Concept in here, right? So you find that. We go here. But why do you do that? Because that's the seat of your identity and the seat of your intelligence. So Aristotle said so beautifully, to educate the mind and to not educate the heart is no intelligence at all. So what we've done in the West is that we've made this wonderful book by Ian McGilchrist talk about the master and his emissary. So the master was the heart and the emissary was the brain. So you'd go check logic and facts with the brain, but the heart was the master. But we've reversed the role. We've made the emissary the one that can only see parts of the picture into the master. So Antonio Damasio, he wrote a book, and in his book he talks about how people that have had injuries to their right side, right hemisphere of the brain, they are able to the left hemisphere is working. They're able to pass IQ tests. They're able to look at facts and figures, but they can't make a decision. How is that? Because decision making, according to, because what we do is we type into ChatGPT, should I go left or go right? But the left brain on its own is not able to make a decision. So what he found, people with damage to their right brain were in infinite loops of choices. They couldn't decide because decision comes from a feeling. Even when you take all the data, one of my friends has one of the most senior roles, and is one of the greatest scientists I know when it comes to facts and figures and data. And I said to him, after you've examined all the data, how do you make a decision? He said, we take a guess. I said, but you can't. He said, because the data has limited abilities. Because remember what data is. It's a record of the past. It's not the present. The present has changed. Mm-hmm. The present situation has changed. Your present requires you to be present, to investigate what is happening in the now. So data should not be treated as a prophet, should be treated as a historian. But what we've done is we've only trusted data. You go into meetings, it's spreadsheets.
It's like a spreadsheet. You're looking at a spreadsheet, but you're not looking at the story.
Yeah.
There's a story within all of this, yeah.
That's
and
true.
You're not looking at, what's the lesson of the story? It's just, this is going to give me a measurement. This is going to give me a metric. It's showing that I'm making profit. But how do you read into that there? It doesn't really show you the holistic part of it. And we get lost in that, looking at spreadsheets, looking at the performance, at the metrics. In the ancient wisdom in that there that you also reflect on, can you give us some examples of what it takes, what a person should go through just to pause and reflect? And I love one of the analogies that if you listen to music, there's a pause or there's a space between two words. But if without that space or that pause, it's just noise. It's just a long range of people talking nonsense probably. But without pause, without reflection, without that silence and space between those two words, that's where listening actually really happens in life. But we've lost that. And is there ways to find that, seek that, experience that?
Experience what? Seek what?
That silence or the pausing, that we require it more because we're so used to the noise that's happening around us that we've lost really the essence of hearing.
Yeah, so the listening is another concept which I'll come on, but the first aspect you're talking about is the silence and the pauses. That refers to the two types of attention to the world. So our left brain sees everything. We see the notes, but we don't listen to the silence. So the right brain is the part of you that encapsulates the whole. So if you look at a song, it's composed of pieces of sound, and there's gaps of space where there's silence. Now, the left brain only wants to focus on the notes, not realizing that if there weren't those pauses, there wouldn't be music. Now, that's where it's like listening to a portion of the music and trying to make a judgment about the music. You can't, right? If you listen to Ping, do you know the song? You don't. And that's what we're doing. But if you actually listen to the whole song, including the silence, we're like, But then when you listen to a song, it's got nothing to do with the notes. It's got to do with the listener and the one playing. because it's a transmission via the platform of an instrument, right? So first of all, there's the person who says, I feel a certain way. I want to say something about how I feel. Grabs the instrument and then says, let me see how I can play this instrument to convey how I'm feeling, with the hopes that someone else, a human with feelings and a perception in the right brain, not because if there was no human element, no right brain, no heart, you'd just be hearing that. So, that's all you're hearing, right? But the whole thing is, why is it that one person likes rock music, the other one likes classical, right? Because we all have different ears, but it's not the ears that is different, right? It's our perception, it's our hearts, it's our preferences, which are all shaped by society and by our past. And some of it's just intrinsically within us. And that's why you have so much beautiful music out there and so much variety. So then if you look at the painting, right, and this is what it's about, retraining how you see, how you attend to the world. And that's what I do in my workshops. I'm like, okay, tell me what you see on the painting. And everybody be a woman wearing a skirt. How many people will go, I see all the white space around it? Or the frame that is on, right? Or if you look at this room, we'll see all the furniture. But if there wasn't the space between the furniture, we wouldn't see the furniture. So it's the space that creates room for the furniture. It's the silence that creates space for the sound. And it's the canvas that creates space for the painting. So understanding how the canvas moves with the piece is most essential. Understanding how silence can be used to bring the music alive is something that very few have done, and there are those. I forget the name of the composer, but he went and he wrote a piece called Silence, right? And I forget the details about it, but the same comes with Zen calligraphy. You'll see just a drop of ink on the wall, and that's it. That's the painting. Or he'll just go whack on this massive canvas, and you'll go, where's the rest of it? Actually, he didn't want you to see the thing, the line. He wants you to see the canvas. And that's what our lives do, right? It's all the things that we're not noticing that are making our lives possible. All these autonomic functions that are happening subconsciously without our awareness. But we not even have the attention for them. Yet everything happens. Everything is a happening. And if you're in a state of being, you can fall into this pause, because that's what there's a wonderful book, and it talks about living in the gap. So if you take, and in the path of when we look at different teachings of meditation, and they say between each thought there is a space. Did you know that? Right? We don't observe it, and then you have one thought, and then immediately, so you do this revolutionary thing, and you watch your thoughts. Nobody's ever done that. What do you mean, watch my thoughts? There are these things that just happen. No, let me ask you the question then. Who's doing the thinking? Or are you being thought? Or are you doing the thinking? Right? We're getting onto a different topic, but it's a topic that I love, and I know you do too as well.
Yeah, because that's, you do discuss meditative thinking.
Yeah.
What is meditation? How do you, because people think, no, you go and sit there and you all Zen or yoga postures, and then that is meditation. But it's much more deeper than that there. It's taking that to understanding the different dimension. Most people are so unaware that you can watch and observe your thoughts. But until somebody is there to experience it or to have told you about it, that you actually realize that, oh, I'm not my thoughts, or I'm the watcher of thought, I'm the observer of thought. Because we get so identified with it, that's our story, that's our life, and that's why we're so identified with pain and suffering as well. But how do we move beyond that? It's leadership is so framed with this academic knowledge that we've been living with for the past 100 years, 200 years. Are we in that old modalities, and then we're moving on to a different framework of thinking, as you say, meditative thinking, rational thinking? And how do we go to that state of meditated? I know you brought up in the book Shoshin, this Japanese concept, Mushin, as well as Fudoshin. It's a different way of looking at the state of our mind, because we're so one-tracked on it's a thinking mind. And this is, if I don't think, I'm not going to be able to create or do or experience life. But there's other states of mind that we may be unaware of.
Yeah, so that's excellent. And the first point is that leadership models are based on a system that is collapsed. It's at the end of its era, and we don't even see it coming yet. It's over. The modern day system of what we see, even in our societies, it's broken. Like, if you go to an economics course and you ask them, could you explain to me how money is moved, how goods are bought? How does the stock market work? How does quantitative easing work? What is all these terms? They've thrown all these terms in. It makes no sense. But then, how does business work? How do we actually make money? You look at balance sheets, PE ratios. We're looking at, forecasting. Companies are worth $1 trillion, yet they're making a loss of $200 billion a year. That's pretty much what OpenAI is doing, right? So, what's business based on? So the entire system of logical thinking, even medicine, is broken in so many ways. Nothing makes sense. But I think this confusion, again, now with AI and the technology thing, well, this new feature has come on board and this is being rolled out, and then you can't even keep up. So the whole system is collapsing on its own. So if you're not, so in your question, how do we do that? First of all, you've got to pause individually and say, who is this guy, girl, looking out at the world? We've never done that. We just see the world. So we go on Instagram and we're like, oh, right, I need to do 20 push-ups and then I'll get my cardio fitness and then I won't die. You never ask, what am I afraid of? Why do I need to go buy the latest lipstick? Because we're in the whole feminine revolution now, right? Women should dress the way they want to. And I agree, to some extent. But then my kids, I've got daughters. I said, why are you buying the latest makeup and the lipstick and the this and the that? Oh, I want to get this. But what for? I mean, who are you trying to impress? Oh, it's for myself. But do you really want to go and spend $200 on that set of makeup? Why? I don't see the point, right? So we never stop and ask this question. So when Instagram and all the social media platforms keep on feeding you into what you should be doing, and that's why they call it a feed, social media feed, because it's feeding you and it's got your attention. We got to stop. And so I do this thing about, Carl Jung talks about the shadow. He has this wonderful line and he says, until you don't make the unconscious conscious, you will call it fate and it will rule your life. You'll say, I don't know why it is like this. It just is like this. Now, in one of the chapters, I say, imagine if I put the planet on the couch. So, because in the coaching, it's a metaphorical couch. Come in, what's your problem? You know what? My wife, she's annoying and I can't get a better job. And, I'm just not happy. And I can't find purpose and meaning. And you know what? I'm running out of time because I have nothing else to extract. So then I say, let's put the planet on the couch. Right? And what I do with my coaching, as you've experienced, is that I don't let you hide anywhere, right? I'm going to reveal everything. Why am I doing this? Because that's the golden stuff. Like you think, if you don't do that, like you'd say, well, I think I have very good high esteem. I believe in myself. In fact, those people really doubt themselves. So they project this aura of superiority because they're hiding their great inferiority, their great fear of being found out to being irrelevant, right? So what I'm going to do with my clients, I'm going to put them on the couch and go, tell me, why do you think you're irrelevant? He said, but no, I'm very relevant. That's why I'm so good. And that's why I've got all the awards. And I'm saying, no, but you're not facing a part of you that is so afraid of being irrelevant. So you're chasing after being relevant. So if we put the planet on the couch and we say, where are we as a people, as a planet, as a corporations, right? Because they rule the world. I'm saying it's like 58 corporations that rule the planet. And they're saying, well, we're running out of natural resources. Now that we've developed AI and AI is going to take everything and everybody's jobs, people won't have jobs but we need to sell products to you. Amazon's going to sell products to who? Because there's nobody's got money anymore because you've taken all our jobs. So what do we sell? So we're in a bit of a trap. So I put them on the couch and go, let's have a proper conversation. The shadow is the thing that's hiding. The planet has to, the companies, the people, all have to have a conversation. So we turned a blind eye to extracting from 85% of the arable soil of the planet. Now we got no food to feed the people. And then we've basically, the oceans are acidifying. Huge pockets of acidification where no creatures can even survive. So we overfished. We've got no more fish. But are we prepared to take responsibility and say, we've caused this? And the only way to evolve, as you've been through your journey and I've been through my journey, it's about evolution. If you can recognize the person that you were before, then you haven't grown. So if we can't go and sit on the couch and go, okay, we've extracted without thinking, we've used people as resources, we basically made ourselves extremely wealthy in the process. We need to take responsibility.
I think that's one of the major reasons people are stuck, is because they only looking at what they can gain out of life. It's like a personal gain. Oh, I'm going to become rich so I can gain things, I can accumulate things. But there's so much of a broader and a vastness that's happening around us. We're part of family, you're part of community, you're part of nature, you're part of these so many happenings, but we only look at your own internal happening of your own psychological aspects. But as you say, there's an ocean, there's nature, there's forests, but it's an extraction that you just keep on taking to grow more of what money and currency, but it's not helping anything. We can probably produce more food now on the planet than all the human beings on the planet, but what happens to the excess? We can throw it away. And we're throwing away our own living meaning of life by doing that there as well. What is the actual goal?
That's the whole question. We are in a meaning crisis because that's what we've been sold. It's not what truly humans for the last millennia thought about life. It's a recent thing. It's about extractive thinking. And the most amazing thing is that we've lost the lust for life. We've lost the purpose. That's what we are purposeless. And there's a wonderful book called Zombie Nation. Where are zombies? Go look around. Try to have a conversation. Look into the person's eyes. There's nobody home. The lights are on. You go into Europe, even in developed countries.
I think you can go be in your own home and you can have the people on the screens.
And that's different. But I'm saying that's the one aspect. But you go look and you see into the eyes of people. They are not there. They are not present. And it's a shame because it's not that I'm not judging them. They don't want to be like that, but they've been sold this thing. So they've been caught in, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to pay my bills. You can never afford a house. You can never afford your salary is just never enough. Inflation keeps on going up. Look at how we're living here in South Africa, right? So it's this never ending goal that you will never catch up to. But nowhere can you stop and say, what the hell am I doing here? Right? Because that's not part of the game. Because there's this thing called game theory we talk about. And we talk about Moloch, right? And the trap, right? It's just that if everybody's developing the technology, we better do it before anybody else does, right? Or if you look at some people that are social influencers on the internet, they're lying out of their teeth. There's all these people that have turned out to
pretension, or pretending.
Well, they're pretending, but because they've lost their souls, because that's of no value. Meaning, we are in the meaning crisis now. So people have lost meaning and people have lost purpose. And so what we have is this thing that's developed now. You can't trust anything. So what happens, what develops is called reality apathy. You just don't care. Because you can't trust if what's being said is true. So what ends up happening? Like even songs that we hear now, they're written by algorithms and they sound great, but there's no soul in them. But so that's the whole thing. If you become so automated as you're becoming and you look in your eyes and there's no human home, then of course, technology and AI will become sentient because you're not sentient. There's nobody home. right? So the whole point is not about.
I'm laughing because there was a question is like, do you give personhood to AI? But it's something that we created. It has no living cellular structure, but you want to mix it now, and you're already thinking of mixing it with the biological framework of a human. But AI is not conscious in that way, or you can't really say it's going to have that amount of feeling. It may, but it's a mimicked feeling. It's based on our human experience, and you're just programming it and saying this is an algorithm for feeling and thinking and emotion.
So it's a distraction. It's a distraction, because the question not really is, will AI become sentient? The question is, will we remain human?
Yeah.
Because the more people become zombified and, of course, concerned with paying the bills and optimizing and getting as much as possible from the planet and from other people, we'll lose our sentience, because we lose our purpose of what it means to be human. And that's my whole call in the book, returning to what it means to be human, because it is the question. When AI chatbots came about, my question is, people will forget what it means to be human. We have to go back to the values of beauty, goodness, and truth. What does beauty, goodness, and truth mean to you? Are you guided by those principles? Because there was Platonic values based on Plato. Because if you're not searching, why do we listen to a piece of music? Because we're looking for the beauty in it, right? Why do we do the right thing? Because there's goodness in it. And why are we so obsessed with authenticity? Because there's truth in it. Because those are values that are inculcated in the human soul. And the soul has become something we're not allowed to talk about. But what drives you?
And you actually touch on that. You say that these words, you don't use soul anymore, or spirit, or it's too, what can you say, too much used in society or nobody wants to talk about it because it steals, there's an essence in it.
And they can't control the narrative. If they can't control the narrative, they can control the narrative when it comes to why you should become rich, because that's a goal. That's part of your human desires. But the soul, if you talk about it, people in charge of controlling narratives, because that's what they're doing all the time, right? What you should be doing with your life. You should be getting more money. You should be getting more successful. You should have the prettiest girl, the prettiest guy. You should be having the fittest body. You should have the best looking body. That's all your obsession is. It's a personal obsession, you know? And in my first book, I talk about how most men, when they talk about men, people will die as adolescents in the West. They actually don't grow to evolve into accepting their sacred place on the earth. The state of being in the world, just being present. So Heidegger talks about there's one of his papers, and he says, what are the poets for in destitute times? We live in destitute times now, where what is the purpose of it? And that's what the poets are for. Poetry, music, dance. Those are the lifebloods that will sustain us, because they sustain the soul. That's what the soul craves, right? Because and a poem can't be extrapolated and understood because it doesn't make sense, right? And same like koans, we were talking about Japanese koans as well. There is no sense making in it, right? So,
no, are we reawakening or awakening to a new reality and dimensions of thinking, or are people still stuck in the old ways?
I think people are, and I'm generalizing because obviously I don't know old people, but you know, based on what you see with the narrative, I think people are so overwhelmed. People are so caught up, and survival has become the thing. So we think that survival, you know, I mean, I read the statistic and I hope it's not true, but something like 20 million people will die of starvation. I mean, that's a lot of people that will die because they don't have food in this time of great opulence and great growth. It's a bit sad, you know. I mean, it breaks me to think that. I mean, we're spending billions on AI infrastructure, data centers, all for control, but we can't feed every human being on the planet, and that really irks me. I even forgot.
I agree with that. It's that you can spend billions of money for the future thing, but the reality is something that's happening currently. We cannot even invest in that or bring it up to a sustainable where we can help those human beings.
Yeah, because there is no, you see, because there's no return on investment.
Yeah.
Everything is ROI.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have to listen to me talking for 10 minutes, your brain is saying, your ego is going, what am I going to get from this?
Mm.
And there's the problem. Because we are only about extraction and about taking. But tell me, what's the purpose of a song? So do we not listen to music? Yet what we've done is we've also made that into an efficiency thing. I will listen to music so I can be more calm, so I can go make more money, right? So I can be more productive, so I can be more concentrated. So there is no, everything's utilitarian, everything extraction, everything is usefulness. What's the point of it? I mean, what's the point watching a sunrise? Right? I go and watch the sunrise and I'm tempted to take my phone out. I'm like, why are you taking a photo? We don't need a photo. It's a sunrise. Who is this sunrise for? Who's the witness? It's only me. It's my sunrise. I'm not sharing this. What's it for? It's for me to be here with the sunrise. Right? But it's not for me to say, okay, I can share it on Instagram. I'll get viral content if I take off all my clothes and stand in front of the sunrise so that I will make more money and become more famous.
But that's presence. It's to be present to something that's different, that's not to accumulate or extract or just to be in that moment. And I think that those are the words that also get so used up today, the now and the present moment. And
yes,
all of these
again capitalized.
Awareness.
You see, yeah, they've capitalized those words, right? And the same thing. And I didn't answer your question when you talk about my whole chapter on stillness, right? Because I feel it is the most important time to be still. Because if you can pause for long enough, you can actually tell what's going on. And you're like, what am I doing here?
Because you're touching a different intuition, a different intelligence that that the left hemisphere doesn't really show. And where the right hemisphere or accessing different types of realities can be experienced. But it's become so, it's mocked and mimicked in society that you can now go for any coach and you say, you're going to teach you to be still and I'm going to teach you meditation. But there's no reality around it because it's such a used up word. What is that meditation and the stillness that you speak about in the book?
Yeah, so meditation comes from the Greek word which means to become familiar with. So when you say I want to meditate on something, in the old days was to become familiar with something. So when you say to meditate, it means that you're going to become familiar with you. That's what it means. So instead of you becoming still, you're becoming aware of what am I doing? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? As the watcher, you watch. Okay, so that thought came, then another thought came, and look, there's a gap between thoughts. I didn't even get to look at the gap. There's a gap, right? Or I didn't notice how when that person says something, I feel it in my chest. Or when I feel defensive, or I like when somebody compliments me. We don't even question that. So that is what meditation is to become familiar with yourself. So meditation is not about quietening the mind. It's about letting it run wild, and you watch it run wild. People don't get that there is a presence within you that can watch, because people say, but how do you watch your mind? There's no such thing, right? So here's an experiment for you. Ask yourself this question. What am I going to think of next? Now watch what happens. So try that. I wonder what I'll think of next. Now, who's watching? The thinker. Is there a difference? Yes, because there is the one watching. Because how could you know? And what most happen to most people, they're like, there's no thoughts coming. Right?
Yeah, I got that.
Right.
Because you're thinking, what can I
think so you're like, okay,
next? And then,
but that's what happens when you watch it.
Yes.
It wants to hide away. It's like, no, don't look at how you can actually watch me thinking, because I want you to believe that you are the thinker, not the watcher. But then if you're the thinker, how can you be watching yourself think? Right? So then there's a difference. And then you when you analyze your thoughts, we have between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. If you have analyzed those thoughts, you'll find that 80% of those thoughts are self-repeating thoughts in different phases. So one will be about your health. The other one will be about your money situation. The other will be about the spouse that you don't like. And then it'll be, and 80% of that chatter is negative biased. So it's all negative stuff because the mind is programmed for survival. So if you think about it, it's so clever, designed. You think about in the environment, oh, what happens if I don't get paid? What happens if I fall over? But you're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder what would happen if I was, sitting on the beach watching the ocean. You don't think that. And you think from a survival mechanism. That's why we're alive. Because think about our ancient ancestors sitting there, I think I'm going to go visit my neighbor across on the other cave. And they didn't think about, the enemy or, some predator. And they were just sitting there, la, 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 la. They would get eaten up. So because of that negativity bias, they were always on the lookout. They're like, oh, yeah, watch out for the predator. But then we evolved with that same type of, except, the ancient versions of us, they had that time of pause. There would be the eating, listening to music around the fire. With our social media and our devices, we don't have that pause, right? So that's what it is. And so having the ability to pause and reflect is extremely important. And it's something that, because there's so much information on social media, you think that if I blink for a second, I'm going to miss out on the latest AI trends, on the latest productivity hack, on how to get more viewers on my Instagram page, on how to make more money from this. And that's the trap. Because if you are still, all the imagination can now run wild. Now, neuroscience, the only way people will actually believe anything you say, if neuroscience proved it, not because human beings have been living this way all their lives, is that when you're bored and you're still, you now activate your imaginative mind, because you're sitting there going, oh, that was, I wonder what happened then. And you're just like, lost in thought, but actually you're not lost in thought. All the creative juices are settling and your mind has time to process all the emotions in that idle time. We don't have idle time anymore. So for leaders, it's extremely important, because from morning till night, like you said, it's 100 emails is your gauge of how productive you were. But if you're a leader making a decision, is that what you want to be, busy?
I get that so much. After having my own transformation journey, is that I was thinking that you got to work a 16 to 20 hour day. You got to have 100, 200 emails a day. That proved that I'm valuable and I'm worthy and I can complete these tasks and deadlines. But as you transform and you access different levels of thinking, meditative thinking, I saw that you can actually do more in less time. And most people are not in that state of mind. Is it, as an executive, I could finish 2 or 3 things in a particular day or a week that would take somebody else maybe a week to a month to complete. But you're giving your mind a space of awareness or different solutions to come to the fore. Where most people are so into that productivity, without speed, there's no progress, there's no production. But we forgetting that the reward is not speed. It should be more than that there. It should be stillness, to be able to sit with ourselves in a better way. And now AI is coming through and we're getting there where we think it's more creative than us. Can you elaborate on that there? Is AI going to be more creative than a human being?
Yeah, before I answer the creativity thing, just to go back to what you were saying about you being able to do more in less time, is because you've learned to still your mind and become more present, that when you are sitting down, you have 100% focus. You're not scattered brain. And if you look at most of us, we're there 16 hours a day around the computers, checking our emails, checking the new feed, all the rest of it. And of course we can't focus. And then you got AI and you type it in there and it's like, well, I thought I had some idea of what I'm doing. AI says I've got something else to do. So then what ends up happening is that your focus is lost. And what you learned to do was to be still. And that observe and presence allowed you to sit down and then you're like, I'm doing this. And what you can do in 2 hours is better than somebody who's been scatterbrained all over the place. And that's why. And that leads into creativity. So creativity in the age of AI, people are saying, well, AI can do all these cool things. In fact, AI builds on what humans have built so far. So AI can't create something new. It can replicate and enhance what's already been created. Right? So when it comes to technology, the cool kind of stuff that you can do with animations and the new colors and the new shapes and all the rest of it, that's not creativity. That's the ability to take different things that humans have fed into the algorithm and then automate to make it look more beautiful or more attractive and all the rest of it. But creativity, what has been around since the beginning of time, the wheel, before we had the square, rocks, right? And if you look at quantum physics and the evolution of that, which is basically stuck for most of the time, I don't know if you know, but science has not really progressed much. We haven't been as creative. We talk about Newton and Einstein and all the greats. And then, of course, we talk about all the Indian sages and all the Indian philosophers who came up with amazing things. And, of course, the Arabs as well. Look at the algorithm, right? Comes from one of the Arab scholars called Al-Khwarizmi, right? Al-Khwarizmi was the man who created these algorithms. Now, that was creativity because he came together and put something through mathematical formulas, which became the algorithm. So true creativity is the domain of humans, but because remember something, creativity is born in a living system. Because if you look at nature, it is the number one creator on the planet. Nature can give birth to a type of fly or butterfly or bird or fish that was never there before. They're finding now species of plants and animals that weren't there before. Who can do that? That's nature. That's creativity.
It's like this regenerative intelligence that's there, that it already exists.
Yeah, so if you look at why is it that nature has this creative ability, is because nature does not follow algorithms. You see, there's an encoding in nature. They call it the Fibonacci sequences, which people like Da Vinci understood and studied. And he learned how to mimic nature's creativity, because nature is the ultimate source of creativity. Because you create something that was never there before, that actually breathes and moves. And of course, now they're saying, we can create artificial robots and all the rest of it. But that's true. Now, here's the big thing that Dennis Noble, great scientist, and you must check him up on YouTube, talks about stochasticity. So you see, a copper wire is fixed. It does not have, and where's stochasticity? In a living system. Only living systems are truly creative, because creativity requires stochasticity, and stochasticity is only found in living systems. Water being the primary example. Now, if AI or technology was running not on copper, but on water, that may be a different story, because it's now embodied in a fluid or a material that is alive. Copper wire is dead, but stochasticity is alive. And what is the ultimate representation of a living system that is truly creative, that is of nature? It's this. But creativity is not the concept of the brain. It's imagination. And imagination arises out of thought. So if you look at when people take psychedelics or go into deep meditative states, they shut down this thing called the DMN, default mode network, which is the conditioned mind. Like if I say, can I go to Mars? Or can I go to Jupiter? Of course, you'd be like, that's ridiculous. Nobody's been to Jupiter, right? And the same with the, one of the, what was it? The 100 mile, no, wasn't 100 mile, 1 mile race or whatever. Until someone did that, then everybody could do it. Until then, it was just a dream, right? So that ability of creativity in humans does not arise from algorithmic. You don't pump into a system and say, can you be more creative? Because creativity is a gift that is given to you through nature. So you first have to become silent inside and stop thinking you're so smart. right? And become truly a listener, to be able to receive the inspiration. That's what true creativity is. It's imagination, it's inspiration. That's why we had these amazing cathedrals and we had these paintings and this music. And if you look at what we're getting right now, it's repetition. Sounds good. No soul. Because the soul is linked to creativity. And people have forgotten that entirely.
Yeah, you're giving the creativity over to a different type of intelligence, a mechanical, automated intelligence that's just mimicking things. And there's an essence in every human being that there is uniqueness and creativity that needs to be unlocked and untapped. And I think your book does that. It's like letting you look at things that you've never seen before, whether it's in leadership or just as a general person. It's very different. What did you want to bring about from the reader to fully understand your book?
Yeah, I want them to embody an entirely new way of being and to become the leader of the future that this planet is longing for. And this book is proof that the universe, and I'm working through whatever you call it, the universe, the divine, because I was just telling you before, I don't even know how it got here or how I got here. But all I said is I have to do something. I believe I have a sacred responsibility to life, and I want to give birth to something that will, first of all, restore humanity in the age when we're losing our humanity. And there is a great birth alongside what I'm doing with many people. And, you know, the funny thing is, my friend bought this book and his son, who was 17, picked it up and went, I love this stuff. It's amazing. And he says, like, do you get it? I totally get it. And then what I realized, then he brought his friends over and they were reading the book and they're like, we love this kind of stuff. We resonate with it. And then I was thinking about the old guard. These guys have been entrenched in these positions where they've been doing the same thing, treating people with resources, using the planet as extraction. They're going to look at this and go, we're not interested in this. We've been getting our paychecks, our bonuses, while we basically just business as usual. So what if the planet dies in the process? So what if people lose their footing? So what if all these things happen? And it's these young people that are going, you know what? And I was just like, I need to be with these people because these people are listening to it. And it's like you give birth to something and you don't know where it goes. And so it's these people that are willing to take on a way of thinking and a way of being. And rather than being a leadership book, it's a way of being that's going to be so aligned with nature, with your true essence, with the values that you didn't even know you held dear. When you talk about beauty, goodness, and truth, when I heard it for the first time, I went, yeah, I love that kind of stuff. It is what I search for. And, and I said that years ago, and one of my clients reminded me, she said, the only thing that we should truly aspire to seek is awe. Awe is the only thing that's worthy of your attention. It's looking for awe in life, in others, in the divine, in nature. And if we spend our time looking for awe, we're not going to be fighting fires and paying bills and all the rest of it. We've got to do those things. But it's about changing our focus. And that's the whole thing. It's not about abandoning the world to the ashram or to the monastery. It's about bringing this back and saying, let's be people that restore the planet and its people, starting with yourself, looking into your own heart, looking into your own soul, looking into your own meaning and your own purpose. And then say, I want to be that leader that will help shape the future. And it's not going to be the old gut. Maybe it is. Maybe they're going to just wake up one day and go, you know what? I don't want to carry on doing what I'm doing. But I know from my coaching, the only time a guy walks into my door or a woman walks is because their view of life has collapsed. They've lost their job. They lost their wives. Their staff hate them. That's the only time. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
I think you get into a comfort zone.
Yeah.
That you become so comfortable that things are going the way you want it to go, that you don't think that it should be different at all.
Yeah.
Can people live with paradox? Is there a way that there's this paradoxical aspects of life?
So let's talk about what paradox is? Paradox is the ability to hold two opposing views within the same framework. Now, remember, your left brain has to come up with an answer. Is it the right or is it wrong? Should we go left or should we go right? Is he a nice guy or is he a bad guy? There's no in between, right? And paradox says, well, actually, it depends on the context. And context is the domain of the right hemisphere. And seeing the different aspects and holding two opposing views, the left brain can't do that. That's where the right brain can go, okay, so he's a good guy when he pays your bills and gives you your salary, and he's a bad guy when he tells you that you have not done the job good enough, right? So is he a good guy or a bad guy? Well, it depends on the context. And it also depends on the observer and on the circumstances. And that's where your right brain encompasses the whole picture. So it depends on context, right? And I spoke about in my first book about a great ancient the Indian philosopher named Nagarjuna. And Nagarjuna talked about the tetralemma. And the tetralemma is 4 equal propositions that could be equally true at the same time, which most left brain thinkers go, well, I don't know what that is, because we know about the dilemma, which is 2 equal propositions. But he proposed the tetralemma. So is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Actually, he proposed 4. He says, he's a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's either a good guy or a bad guy, or he's none of them, or he's both. Good guy and bad guy, right? So it's like there's 4 different.
It's giving you such a vast array of thinking as well.
Right. Now, computers and left-brainers, they don't like that. They just want to put him in the box. He's a bad guy, chuck him away. Right. And we do that. Right. So you find, I know when I do coaching and, someone was married to a particular man. I remember this woman and but so he's become this absolute prick now after 22 years. Right. But do you remember any of the times that he did anything good for you? No. He was always. So then the brain starts hallucinating and starts becoming very subjective in the facts that it draws. And they found that memory is actually subjective. It actually wasn't the experience, it's how you interpret the experience. So then, that's, if we can't pause and we say, let's not make a decision because it's not the right decision. It's not the right time. So that's why, and I say, when you ask the brain and you ask the heart and you ask the gut and there's no alignment, it's not time to act. It's time to seek further, to pause. And so I got this thing called 7 generations thinking. Before you decide on implementing the new technology, did you ever think about 7 generations later? Because they found things when the tsunami happened in Japan. They found after the tsunami happened, people had built signs and they were buried under rocks that says, do not build past this point. And of course, people ignored it and built past those points. And then what happens is when the tsunami came, all of that was washed away. But there were signs there because these people were thinking about us coming forward. But think about what our future children and, our future progeny is going to think about our decisions. Why can't we think about that? And that's the whole thing about being blindsided and making decisions for the now. The next balance sheet. So what if we take off all the soil? As long as we've got food to feed the planet now, we're not going to have any food in the future. But that's the reductive now thinking that doesn't consider all the different aspects. So knowing how to think and broadening your awareness is vital. And that's why I lay out an entire framework on how to think. And I'm very passionate about it. But remember, thinking is not thinking in the brain. Thinking has got nothing to do with the brain. And yet it has one aspect. So again, here's a paradox, right? And a contradiction. Thinking has nothing to do with the brain, yet thinking has everything to do with the brain. And you'd be like, well, which one is it? It's actually both. And I can explain because in all ancient traditions, they talk about mind. Where is the mind? In the Taoists, they talk about mind being in your feet. In the Japanese and in the tradition, they talk about the hara. The hara, the place, and that's what they call harakiri, right? The place by your navel. That's where your mind is. But in the West, our mind is just here. So the mind is not located in one particular place. Neither is thought. So when I talk about thinking, I'm talking about a very broad awareness of what's going on as I make a decision. What part of me makes a decision? How well do I know that? So we say we're great decision makers. No, you're not. You're terrible. You rely on his history. You're looking at data. You're like, well, if it happened all the time before, it's going to happen like that again. The world is changing radically. And you are a relic of the past, right? So you got to step up with the times, the current moment, never forgetting the history. But if you make the data into the prophet, you've basically lost your place, lost your footing. So,
well, that's interesting. And I know you bring it up in the book, the brain, the heart, the gut. It needs to be aligned. You need to look at that there. If you're making a decision, it shouldn't be just, immediate and instant gratification or whatever is the required purpose of it at that time. And we also have the science of it today that that your heart has 40,000 neurons in terms of thinking, that your gut has this particular intelligence and your brain also has a different type of intelligence. Does that come with having an observation of yourself, to watch yourself internally and seeking that wisdom of reflection? And it's more than just reading a book. It's something that has to be practiced, something that has to be lived. And I notice that you always say that you've got to live with what you wanting to experience in life. If you want goodness, if you want beauty, you've got to live with that. You've got to experience that. It's not about reading it and going maybe on a holiday, on a vacation, and you think it's these intermittent experiences that's not giving you a holistic feel of life. Do we need to practice that more, looking at these different intelligences within us?
Yeah, and that's the self-awareness that has to come about. Because the reason I'm mentioning those different centers is because we have been taught as a society to only trust facts. And I quote Charles Dickens, right? Because one of the lines in Charles Dickens' poem is like, facts, facts, and facts. Teach them nothing but facts. If you go to school, what do you get? Just facts. Right? It's never like, well, how did you come to that conclusion? So yes, we have to rely on these intelligences, innate abilities. The gut can make a decision independently of the brain. People don't know that. Something in you goes, you'd be like, okay, like I remember buying a car, right? So you'd like, okay, Toyota Corolla 19, well, not now, it's not 19, let's call it 1984, right? It's got central locking, and you're like, okay, hits all the boxes. And you turn up there, you meet the guy, you take the car for a drive, and you're like, no, I'm not buying it. And the guy's like, but what happened? You're like, I'm just not feeling it. Now, is that the wrong decision? Well, there's your problem. You rely exclusively on the data. So I have someone else in my life, I won't mention who ignores everything that their body is saying. And they go ahead and follow the facts, the spreadsheet. And they buy it and they suffer through their decision because they didn't trust their gut or their heart. And so many times, if you check in with your heart, and remember, you got to train your heart to become a vehicle of perception, an organ of seeing, of understanding. Understanding.
I know I picked that up in your book. It's
right.
that you understanding is looking at the ground that
right.
you're walking on. And
but if it's all here, then you've got nothing to stand on. This is where you stand on. So we haven't, and all the ancient cultures always taught this, that this is where you focus your energy, right? You don't focus your energy on more facts, more information, because information does not lead to wisdom. It does not lead to clarity. It does not lead to groundedness. Right? But if you look at what all the ancient practices were, the Japanese talk about the hara being your seat of existence. So in the West, we say, we lost our mind. You saw a man who's behaving badly. I think he lost his mind. In Japan, they say he lost his hara because this is where the man's balance is, the center. So in the West, you'll find like they show the Western people taking pictures of diplomats and they're all like off center and posing like that. If you look at Japanese statesmen, always firmly grounded. Because in the Japanese culture, although it's losing a lot now, being grounded was a sign of being strong. So if you look at our breathing and our speaking, they say when a man speaks from up here, he's lying. When a man speaks from his hara, he's speaking the truth. Because in the English, in the Japanese language, the word for yes is hai. It's hai. But if you go hai, right? It came from here. He's not really serious.
Oh.
But if he goes,
Presence.
it says like, are you in? You say, hi, I'm there. Where did it come from? And they know, because they know their own hara. So when they hear the word, they're like, no, that man didn't. He can even try and fake it. He'll be like, hey. And the other man who knows himself, because you can't know the world if you don't know yourself, right? There's a wonderful line. If you want to know God, you got to know yourself, right? Because how else are you going to know God? So that's the hara, right? So the hara, so they say in the West, they're lung breathers. In the East, they're belly breathers. So we are, and because the energy is going up, all this here. So we're off center here. So if you're grounded here and you live through groundedness, then your thinking is not really thinking, it's groundedness. And you'll be able to look at someone and go, and that's where I teach you how to walk into the room with your hara. What does that mean? That you are so grounded that your presence, people don't know why, and they're like, that man or that woman has something. And that's your ability to be present. So it's not about your brightest Gucci suit that you bought for X amount of money or your Maserati. It's how you show up in the world. And of course, the whole point is you don't want to be respected, but you are, because you respect yourself. Mm-hmm. But other people, they're getting the Ferraris, they're getting the Guccis. It's because they desperately want people to go, look at me as I rev my car around Santon at 200 kilometers an hour, almost killing myself and everybody
validation.
Else. Yeah, because they really desperately need it. They've made money.
Yeah.
And they're trying to think, okay, well, I need people to see me. What's I going to do for you, buddy?
But they actually don't respect themselves.
No, that's just what it is. If you respect yourself, I don't care what car I drive. If I want, I'll go buy a car. And now you see this new kind of minimalistic rich people, and they're buying 4x4s. And now that's become, but again, without realizing it, they're buying it because they want to look like, oh, I'm minimalistic and I'm a yoga, practitioner and all the rest of it. So again, even just talking about yoga was developed by men, for men, because women live in their bodies already. Men live in their heads. So these guys said, let's come up with a system that would ground men and take them out of their heads and into their bodies. But of course, who does yoga today? It's all the women. It's like, yeah, we love it. But the men are so disconnected from their bodies, right? And sometimes women are too connected to their bodies. And that's the whole balance, right? So you have to listen to the different organs of perception. But you have to know thyself. And knowing thyself means knowing how I feel, how I react, how I understand. And that's the thing about listening, right? When you're listening, do you know that listening is not happening through the ears? It's happening through the skin. Now, if I tell you that, immediately you're like, okay, where in my skin? Right?
Because it's that paradox that you got to look at. It's more than that. It's not like taking the verbal instruction of you got to listen. You think you're with your ears.
Yeah.
And it's how you also explaining is like we've limited our heart to a pump.
Right.
And you keep on making these frameworks of logic where there's more than that. It's a vortex. It's a dimension. It's a seat of awareness. It has so much of vastness that we're limiting it. And, Einstein says knowledge is limitation, and logic can take us from A to B, but imagination can take us everywhere. And we've limited our imagination to such an extent that we rely on the data and on the metrics and on the measurement too much when there's something so much more powerful within us. And you've brought that out into this book. Is there any lasting words that you'd like to give to your reader and to the listener?
Yeah, I think if you're ready to think differently, to recognize the state that we're in the world, and you're feeling empowered enough to want to make a change and to be the change, and you're tired of the old game, and you know there's another way forward, and you're prepared to undergo a self-transformation, then let's get started. Pick up the book, because I'm ready to bring this to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rishad. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Varush.
Thank you for your insight.